Alrighty, hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. Serving Nerve, where we talk about whatever we want, and today we're going to be going through more fat acceptance, body positivity TikToks. So yeah, let's just get into this. Alrighty my people, I just want to interject that I do have a Patreon, and I do want to point out that if you want to support the channel, there is exclusive content on there, and I upload once a week. So yeah, if you want to check it out and support the channel, cool. If not, then let's get on with the video.
I have a hot take to share that's not actually a hot take, but people will think it's a hot take because they're offended and or feel judged by it. Stop using the word obese or obesity, especially if you're talking about a fat person, but just in general, just don't use the word obese or obesity to talk about fat people or fat bodies.
I have to point this out. It's very ironic that this person is saying, I have a hot take, people are going to feel judged when, they hear me say this, blah, blah, blah. Don't use the word obesity because it's offensive or it's rude or whatever. Use these other terms instead. The people who get offended by people using the term obesity to refer to fat people are usually fat people, particularly in the body positivity, fat acceptance movement. It's ironic that this person is saying that we, as the users of the term, will feel judged when they are the ones feeling judged themselves. So I find that particularly ironic, but let's continue.
Because we are not a disease. We are not scientific experiments. We are people. If you want to talk about a fat person, you can call them a fat person of size, a plus size individual, etc. You do not have to use the word obese. It is not an accurate term to discuss human beings or their bodies.
I also just want to point out, this person is acting as if, referring to somebody as obese creates like an identity for them, like they themselves are the obesity, They're referring to them as a disease, referring to them as these things, when in reality, it's just a categorization. People are just being categorized into specific weight classes. It doesn't mean it's their identity, and I don't understand the difference between calling somebody fat, calling somebody obese, calling somebody plus size. It all refers to the same thing. Obesity is just a BMI description of a specific weight category. It's going to be a BMI of like 30 plus. So when this person's arguing about the semantics and the terms involved with obesity, it doesn't really change that much when it comes to the conversation. We're talking about disease risk. When it comes to you measuring something medically, scientifically, in a study or something like that, you're going to have to use some sort of specific wording for a BMI. When we refer to obese people, it usually categorizes them at a BMI of 30 plus. When we use the term obesity, it categorizes somebody at a specific weight when it comes to the risks and when we measure those risks. It's not here to be offensive or belittle you or demean you on the basis of your body weight or treat you like you're less than a human being. It's merely just a term used to categorize you on the basis of BMI. You can argue how helpful that is. You can argue BMI and, what obesity factor would be the most risk-worthy, or if being morbidly obese categorically is more risky. But at the end of the day, it's not going to change the overall conversation. And the fact that we're trying to pick out specific terms to replace the word obesity when it's used medically, one, replacing that whole system will be a disaster. But outside of that, it's not going to change the overall conversation. We can call somebody, super fat instead of obese, but it's not going to really change the overall outcome of that person. It's just going to change the word. Changing words doesn't really do that much. You can act like obesity is a slur, but overall, it's not going to really change the overall conversation here. It's just going to make it more word-oriented, more PC, and it's not even going to help you when you make an argument for like haze, or when you make an argument for, the terms being used. So I just think it's silly. I think it's just a way to make people jump through hoops when they're talking about this thing. It adds up more barriers. Like, instead of us actually having a proper conversation about medical literature or, obesity and the weight categories that come with that, or anything like that, we're just arguing about the word itself, and that doesn't really mean that much. Heart disease, cancer, diabetes, joint issues, these ailments do not care about our feelings, So I just think it's funny. I also think it's kind of silly, because we're sheerly arguing about nothing.
In addition, on the mid-size post, a couple folks said, well, I identify as mid-size because I'm not obese and I'm not skinny. And I think to me that's a red flag.
And then when somebody uses a different term, like referring to themselves as mid-size when they're not skinny or obese, aka probably a normal weight, maybe overweight, but probably a normal weight, then you take issue with that. So even when people use the terms, you have an issue with it. It's just ridiculous. It's incredibly silly to be making arguments about all these stupid terms when they don't mean anything. You can change the word obesity. It won't really change anything about the overall situation with the fat acceptance movement, the body positivity community. It won't really change anything with the overall arguments being made. It's just going to create more hoops for people to jump through, and it's not going to help the overall argument being made. So this girl has a comment, would you still be with him if he was also a feeder? This refers to probably like a boyfriend that was broken up with.
Very first boyfriend I ever had ended up being a feeder. He was like a Christian homeschooled kid, and he was really cute, and he worked at this little like burger place, like ice cream and burgers. And I was in there with my friends one day, ordered like just some fries, and I went to go pick him up from the counter, and the guy working, he had like his bare hand, and he like went to hand me the fries, and like one of them kind of like fell over and touched his hand. And if you've taken like food safety, you'd know you're not supposed to touch the food with your hand, or you know, he'd have to go get me some new stuff.
I just have to point this out. Okay, referring to the Christian thing. Yeah, for some reason, most Christians I've met, probably 80% of the Christians I've met, if you know them well enough, they'll reveal some weird kinky stuff to you. But I think it might have something to do with the fact that, like, not everybody starts off Christian, or it's an age-based thing or something. I don't know. But I've actually experienced some very interesting interactions, particularly with, like, just Christians. I don't know what the type of Christian is, but it's just Christians. And then also referring to the food safe thing, yeah, you know what? Working in the restaurant industry, I gotta say that is a big thing. I've also worked at a lot of places that don't follow any of the food safe rules, which is ironic. There's a lot of rules that go into food safe. If you do not follow protocol, you are potentially in a lot of trouble. But alas, a lot of places just don't follow the stuff, and they get away with a lot. So if you've worked in the restaurant industry or in fast food, you kind of already know that most places are disgusting, and you don't really care if somebody touches your food because it's probably been through worse.
I was like, don't worry about it. It's fine. I work in food too. I really do not care that your finger touched it. Like, stared at me and smiled, and we just had like this moment. And anyways, like, me and my friends were hanging out outside, and this guy comes out to like take out the trash, and I was like hollering at him, and I was like, hey, you should tell that guy in there that he's really cute. We all like laughed, and I didn't think he would actually do it, but he literally went in there and told the guy that I said he was really cute. And so he comes outside, and he ends up like exchanging phone numbers with me, and we start talking. Here's this little picture. That's when we were in high school. I was 16 and I think he was like 18. 16-year-old me was about it. I thought he was like the cutest thing ever. So we start going on dates, and it's dope. His dad's a doctor. He drives a BMW. I'm fucking thinking it is nice as shit. Like, I've got it made. I got a cute guy. And then like 2 or 3 dates in, he tells me that he gets turned on watching me eat.
The story's already weirding me out for multiple reasons, but let's just continue.
And I'm like, I'm a teenager. Like, what? But he was like super like sheltered and reserved, so I think he was also very confused by himself being into that. And then like the more we got to know each other and stuff, he started telling me other things, like he really was into like women like outgrowing their clothes and wearing clothes that are like too small for them and like really tight, and like the button popping and like the typical kind of shit. But he told me one time that like even as a little kid, when he was like 5 years old, he was like playing on the floor at church, and he was sitting like behind this like really big woman who like spilled over in her chair. And he said that he like remembered like being a little kid and like sitting on the floor behind her and just being like amazed at like the width of the ass. And like I like there's a little bit of wholesomeness to it there.
Wholesome? This isn't wholesome. This is weird. No shade, but shade. Because, you know what? I don't know. Feederism to me is one of the worst kinds of like fetishes or kinks that people can have, because it usually entails early death, like feeding somebody into morbid obesity. Like, it's atrocious. So no. None of that. Please no. Like, I don't even know if I need to elaborate on how weird this is.
You like what you like. Like, you can't fucking, you can't change your stripes.
Okay, but there are better and healthier kinks out there than like feeding people, making them wear really tight clothes, or having them outgrow their clothing into like an unhealthy body weight and stuff like that. Like, that is not a healthy perception to have. It's an abnormal perception to have that usually can hurt the person that you fetishize. or the body that you fetishize. Like, I don't know, man. I think it's not a healthy perception to have. And also, like, this young, impressionable 16-year-old girl being, like, told, like, well, you know, I'm into all these things. And that's kind of like a developmental year where you might not be likely to, like, put your foot down and, like, be like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not eating and outgrowing my clothing and overeating and doing all these things for you because, you know, I can just get somebody else. Because this is a 16-year-old girl. It's her first boyfriend. So she's probably going to be all for it or be going along with whatever. And then this guy at age 18 isn't being told no when it comes to a level of boundary setting and decency and maybe not endorsing really bad, unhealthy habits. So it's just going to create a really negative dynamic for both of those people going into the future when they get into later relationships.
One time we ended up going to the drive-in movies with like a bunch of my friends, and my dad would let me take his truck, and I would put like the blow-up mattress in the back with a bunch of like blankets and pillows, and we would all go to the drive-in and like, you know, hang out and watch movies and stuff. Well, I'm sitting in his lap, and my like best friend at the time is sitting next to us, like with like our backs up against the cab of the truck. We're sitting there, and like it's a late night, and I'm snoozing, I'm like dozing off, I'm not really paying attention. I like turn around and I look back, and homeboy is making out with my friend right next to me. I'm like sitting in his lap, and he's making out with her.
Shocker. Young, dumb 18-year-old boys and the instability of a weird relationship that's come to be. That's so crappy, though. That's terrible. You know, really, really irresponsible, really trashy 18-year-old dude right there.
And I'm like, what? And I get up, and I start to get down from the truck bed, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, this is like my boyfriend and my best friend, and like, she's not even trying to fucking hide it. And anyways, we get out of the fucking truck, and this girl goes, please don't tell my mom.
Girl, I would tell everybody. I learned from my last relationship, which was my first relationship, that, you know what, I did not talk enough to everybody when it came to my guy trying to cheat on me, my ex. And if I could go back, the one thing I'd do is tell his mom, tell his grandmother, tell his parents, tell his family, tell everybody. I would tell everybody. I would give them all that information. I would leak the DMs to them. I would be like, listen, he's not a good guy. Don't give him any level of endorsement because he's a bad guy. Like, that is not good. But no, of course, you know, oh, don't tell my mom. Your feelings don't matter, but don't tell my mom. That's pretty trashy. That's a pretty bad friend, and you shouldn't be their friend, obviously. But that's also a terrible boyfriend, and yeah, glad that you're no longer with that person.
Like, you don't give a fuck about me. Please don't tell your mom. Please don't tell your mom. Okay, whatever. Anyways, I think I like hung out with him a handful of times after that, but it basically was kind of like the end of the era of dating him, and it just put a sour taste in my mouth, and I didn't really date anymore after that. Not ones that were that open anyways. Like, if they enjoyed watching me eat dinner, they didn't tell me, but there's probably a few of them sprinkled in there. I've been on like 250 Tinder dates. Anyways, my ex-bestie has been watching my videos lately and left a rude comment yesterday, so I'm sure she's gonna watch this too. I hope you liked it. I hope the kiss was good. I hope your mom never found out.
Yeah, honestly, fuck her. Fuck her, bro. She sucks. She can get mad. Get mad. Honestly. Like, that is terrible. I actually have my sympathies for this person. They've had a really bad hand played to them at a really young stage in their life. And also, that is a lot of dates. I don't know. I guess I've been on a lot of dates too, though I'm not one to talk. But yeah, that's atrocious. I have my sympathies with that. Dealing with a cheater and having them directly cheat in front of your face, that's disgusting. And then having like a scuzzy friend go along with it, terrible. I've never dealt with that, but I cannot imagine what I would do in that kind of situation. Probably something violent or obsessive and insane.
It's pretty disappointing when your favourite body positive influencers have turned into weight loss influencers overnight, right?
I mean, get over it. Body positivity, like any other trend, is usually a trend. People can pick it up and then drop it. Most people get on the bandwagon, and then when it doesn't work for them, they find that they just jump to something else because, you know, they still don't know what they're doing with their lives. I think that it's super common for people to go from movement to movement and then change their opinions on things and then go in a different direction. It's a super common thing, and I don't think we should be offended, especially if it's in the wake of trying to better oneself. Usually when people get into body positivity and like fat acceptance and stuff like that, they really try to like work in a sense on themselves, try and build a better self-perception towards the way that they look at themselves. And then if they find that the community they've gotten into is more in line with trying to make other people conform to them instead of have them work with themselves, they might bounce from that community. or when the pressure gets too great, like people are, bullying them online, or when people in the community that they're in kind of bully them into staying the way that they are instead of working on themselves, it's completely understandable why they wouldn't want to remain in that movement. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that crazy.
I went on Instagram for the first time in a little while, and I was like, I'm going to check in with my fat ladies. And it turns out all my fat ladies who were talking about body acceptance are now weight loss influencers, and they're talking about how much they hated themselves and how they had to take their health seriously.
I'm sorry I keep interrupting this person. I think it's completely understandable to have a bad self-perception of yourself when you stay stagnant and maybe you don't lose weight when you need to lose weight, or gain weight when you need to gain weight, or do all these things. And then also, I feel like a lot of people in the body positivity, fat acceptance community kind of appeal to futility. They kind of give up, and that's why they're in this community. And then they learn to accept themselves for the, perceived, from their perception, failure that they are. So I think it's pretty reasonable why people would want to change from that, or it's a phase, and then they go and move on with their lives, and they eventually break from that bubble and lose the weight.
And I just think it really puts the fat acceptance, body neutrality movement, it sets us back, because it's suggesting that the only reason that people are saying that they're okay with being fat is because they don't have another option.
I mean, yeah, a lot of people actually act like that in the movement. A lot of people say, oh, it's genetic. Oh, I have no control over it. Weight loss doesn't work, diets don't work, nothing works. And yeah, it sounds like that. In the community, that's a theme amongst tons of people, that they can't change. They don't have the power. They're all victims of circumstance. So that's not a problem with the people who leave. Those people actually are the ones who change, and they know they can do what they can do. They know they can lose weight if they want to. It's a personal choice. The people that remain in the movement probably don't think they have many options, or they just give up because they don't want to change for the better. If you could change and get your health together, or work on your well-being, progress in life, or treat yourself better, why wouldn't you, unless you think that you can't, or you think it would be too difficult?
And that as soon as they get the willpower, that they'll acknowledge that actually that was all a lie and they were never okay. So yeah, it's just, and I mean, of course they have the right to lose weight. That's not what I'm talking about. It's the way it's being framed as they've finally seen the light and acknowledged that people hate fat people and being fat is unhealthy. Like we haven't heard that a million times before. Yeah, so it's just disappointing.
I have to point this out also. I'm sorry I keep interrupting, but I also have to point this out. People shouldn't hate each other on the basis of their body weight, but one thing that people do find they do not like is when somebody can't really better themselves, or they aren't progressing in life, or they aren't working towards fulfillment, and they're kind of staying stagnated, maybe in a more depressed state of being. That's when people kind of criticize it more so. And the body positivity, fat acceptance movement does have that level of stagnation with it, where it's I can't change. That's a common theme. Maybe not with everybody, but it's a common theme. But the other thing I wanted to point out was, when you find that you're physically unwell, whether you're super underweight or super overweight, that is a state of being that you want to break from. It doesn't matter about the movement. You can still be body positive at any weight. You can be body positive, in my opinion, at any weight. But the question is, are you healthy? And working towards your health, I think, is one of the most body positive things you can do. I think that people break from the body positivity movement and the fat acceptance movement particularly because they know that there's something better for themselves and they don't want to be stuck in the same place over and over again.
Yeah, so it's just disappointing, because I think there is a way to talk about the fact that you've chosen to lose weight in a body acceptance, body neutral, fat positive way, rather than starting to be fat phobic and a prime example of diet culture.
This is actually seemingly a problem with the movement. If so many people stop becoming fat acceptance influencers, and they all say yeah, this movement's toxic, everybody's crazy in this movement, they all say these things about this movement, or the way they were treating themselves in the movement, that's their perception. That's the way they see everything, that's the way they're approaching it, that's the way they're dealing with this matter. And the reality is, you wanting them to have a different way of explaining this or perceiving this, or going oh well, I decided to lose weight but I'm still fat acceptance oriented and body positive and all that, it's not truthful. That's not how people see it, that's not how people deal with it, that's not how people have been treated nor act in this movement. So criticizing the way that people see the movement after they've been in the movement and they break from that movement, I think is just kind of silly, and I don't think it's going to mean anything. You can be disappointed, that's your own perception, but other people probably were disappointed when they had to realize that they had to change and they had to break from the movement for whatever reason to lose their weight and hit their goals in a different way. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what do you think about all of this? And yeah, that's it. So I hope y'all enjoyed, my people, and I'll see you all next time. It has been lovely. Slater.